Over the past couple of months, I've broken down 6 custom campaigns, but none of them are as difficult and as challenging as the winner of the recent poll, Buried Deep. This campaign is one of the hardest maps on the workshop, and I'm not saying that lightly. Buried Deep and its 5 chapters are full of crescendo events, and they are some of the hardest events you will find in a custom map. Putting aside the difficulty, this campaign has a ton of lore and small details that are easy to overlook. So, without wasting any more time, let's break down the story behind Buried Deep. The campaign starts out with the survivors in a maintenance room. The description for the campaign reads as follows. This campaign is set in an alternate timeline where the APC that rescues the survivors in Blood Harvest takes them to a vast underground research complex located somewhere beneath the wild mountains of West Virginia. There, the survivors had 3 days of peace before the infected managed to break through the entire complex. Escaping from the initial invasion wave, the survivors managed to reach some maintenance rooms where they could hide until the outbreak calmed down, where the campaign starts. So, now we know when and where this campaign takes place. Instead of going to Georgia, the survivors were taken to West Virginia. After leaving the safe room, the survivors kill a few zombies and then arrive here, an open area with buildings and military vehicles. When you head inside one of the buildings, you can find this on the wall. Level 36, Kitchen. The first 3 chapters take place underground, but there are still a lot of very nice set pieces. This really does feel like a top secret military complex. The atmosphere is helped immensely by the campaign's custom tracks and sound effects. This is also a good time to point out a funny Easter egg that can be found while playing through this campaign. Throughout chapters 1 and 4, you can find these photos on the wall. Nothing else to add, it's just really funny. Now let's talk about another Easter egg. After walking into this room, if you look behind this pillar, you can find this button. If you press the button, a secret area opens in this hallway. When you walk into this room, you find another locked door along with 2 dead tanks and supplies. It should also be noted that when you walk into this room, something is shaking your screen. Also, before we move on, yes, this button is the exact same button used in the classic Doom games. Now, let's talk about the end of Chapter 1. The survivors reach a giant door and open it using a nearby switch. At the back of the room, you can find this text on the wall, Gate 30B, Research Division Entrance. This is also a good time to point out one of this campaign's best features. There are a lot of holdout events in this campaign, and they are really hard. But you are given an ample amount of supplies before each attempt, and you also have these mounted miniguns. In the official Left 4 Dead campaigns, the mounted miniguns are not good. They are placed in very inconvenient spots, and it's very easy to get attacked from behind. Most players just completely ignore them. In Buried Deep, however, the mounted miniguns are actually really good. The zombies don't spawn behind or on top of you, meaning you can mount the gun without getting attacked from your blind spot. Explosive barrels are also placed in the area, making your job a little easier. We'll talk more about these holdout events later in the video, but for now, let's head over to Chapter 2. When you leave the safe room, the survivors find this on the wall. Sector 8X, Maintenance Storage. If you walk into one of the side rooms, you can find this meme on the wall. Shortly after, the survivors find a bathroom. The door on the far right is locked for some odd reason. We'll talk about this in just a second. After this, the survivors find themselves here. A massive drop can be seen just over the railing. Now let's talk about our next Easter egg. When you walk down these stairs, you can jump over the railing and onto this pipe. When you walk to the far left, you can find this button. And after interacting with it, you are then teleported to the bathroom with a locked door. But this time, the door opens. When you head inside, it looks like a standard bathroom. But if you interact with the toilet, it explodes and a horde is summoned. You take damage, but a pack of medkits spawn at the same time, so it's not so bad. However, when the toilet explodes, a witch is disturbed somewhere off screen, and she will chase you, so keep that in mind. Now, let's move on. Shortly after, the survivors climb down a ladder, and when you look down the hallway, you can find a door that says, Don't Dead Open Inside, which is another reference to the Walking Dead TV show. After this, the survivors find yet another blocked door. On the left, you can find this piece of wall graffiti, Don't Open, Haunted Place. You then have to break the boards and open the door, but when you do that, this happens. Buried Deep has a lot of horror elements, and those are highlighted best in this chapter. Shortly after, the survivors have to fight the infected through tunnels. It seems like a standard segment, but every couple of minutes, this happens. While walking through this area, you can also find these guys, shadowy figures that are completely unkillable. They will ignore you and don't pose a threat, but it's still unsettling on a first playthrough. You can also find the posters of some underrated horror movies, like Grave Encounters and VHS 2. Actually, I take that back. Grave Encounters is the only decent movie of the two, but I'm getting off topic. While walking through the tunnels, you can also find a telephone and a piano in a hallway. At first I thought this was a PT reference, but the giant piano puts a hole in that theory. It's a very odd place to put a piano, that's all. After walking a little further, the survivors walk into a room, and when you look out the window, you can see this in the distance. Chapter 1 was the standard military complex, but Chapter 2 takes the horror vibe to a whole other level. We already have very loud sirens, ghosts, and now satanic rituals. And we still have a few more things to talk about before heading over to Chapter 3. Near the ending of Chapter 2, the survivors find an elevator and need to hold off the infected until it arrives. When you call down the elevator, the lights turn off and the infected will be swarming you from almost every direction. A good Molotov or pipe bomb will make things easier, but on higher difficulties, this segment is very challenging due to the lack of visibility. When you take care of all the zombies, the elevator arrives and the survivors pile in, but after hitting the button, this happens.
Take this.
This is the second time Pyramid Head made a cameo in a custom campaign, but this time he's actually moving. Also, him walking towards the elevator caught me off guard the first time I played. I sometimes forget the things that are possible in a Left 4 Dead custom map. Shortly after, the survivors find their next safe room and head over to Chapter 3. Shortly after leaving the safe room, the survivors walk into a massive open room. The survivors have to turn on the power and open the doors to an elevator. If you look on the left hand side, you can find a radio on a desk, and when you interact with it, you can hear the following. When you head to the back of the room, you can find this above the doors to the elevator. Department of the Army, United States of America. After turning on the power and opening the door, the survivors, once again, have to hold their position while fighting off the infected hordes. You have a mounted gun and supplies to make things easier, but this holdout event is still a brutal challenge. It goes on for quite a while, and when the elevator does arrive, you have to fight through the infected to make it to the elevator. This event killed me and my bot teammates on normal difficulty. I can only imagine how hard this campaign is on expert difficulty runs. When the survivors reach the elevator, they realize it's broken. You then have to walk all the way up the ramp. When you reach the top, you can find this piece of wall graffiti on the left-hand side. Danger! This bunker is infested. Get away. If you look above the doors, you can also find this piece of text. General Astorin Military Research Complex. The survivors then climb a ladder, and after a short walk, they find train tracks. A clear sign that we are getting closer to the surface. The survivors find their next safe room and then head over to Chapter 4. After leaving the safe room, the survivors find yet another elevator, and have to hold off the infected until it arrives. When compared to the other crescendo events in this campaign, this one is very easy. The elevator arrives very quickly, so on lower difficulty settings, you should be fine. When the elevator reaches the top, the survivors walk through a door and make it to the surface. The first 3 chapters are spent underground, fighting the infected through tight corridors. Chapters 4 and 5 change up that formula. Instead of tight hallways, there are wide open areas. Usually, I would praise the dichotomous level design, but there are a few problems with chapters 4 and 5. We'll talk about that in just a second. For now, we have another Easter egg to cover. When you reach the street and walk to the left-hand side, you can find a small hill. If you walk up the hill, you can see a building in the distance. When you approach the building, you can find this on the door, Pillar Men Room. And when you open up the door, 3 tanks will spawn. If you are able to kill the tanks, you're rewarded with a bunch of medkits and healing supplies. Killing 3 tanks is very challenging, and the reward isn't all that great. If you're playing this campaign normally, it's best to ignore this Easter egg since opening the door is basically a death sentence. After walking up the street, the survivors find a blocked door. Above the door you can see this, LVR-31. On the left-hand side you can find this piece of wall graffiti, "They don't stop coming." You have to shoot the gas cans and burn down the blockade while fighting off the infected hordes. This is hands down the weakest holdout event in the campaign, and that's because this area is way too dark and it's very wide open. The surrounding tree line makes it harder to spot the infected, and you have no reliable spots to hold out. On expert difficulty runs, this holdout is very challenging, so bring a pipe bomb. After heading inside, the survivors find themselves inside yet another top secret complex. You can find this piece of paper by the entrance and it reads as follows. Warning, all personnel are required to use a combination locator. The denial of using a locator will result in geometrical motion of the facility to prevent unauthorized people from entering. On the right hand side, you can also find this piece of wall graffiti. Great, we're all bloody inspired. This line is spoken verbatim by the character Newt in the third Maze Runner movie.
Sure about this? Not really? Nice pep talk.
Yeah, bloody inspired.
This isn't the only Maze Runner reference found in this chapter. When you head deeper into the complex, you can find massive walls and twisting corridors, a very similar layout to a maze. And when you head a little deeper and look up, you can see this on the wall, WCKD, or Wicked. This is another reference to the Maze Runner franchise. Wicked is an organization trying to find a cure for a deadly virus. They also built the mazes seen in the movies and books. After a short walk, the survivors find even more Wicked writings on the wall. One of them looks like this, and on the right hand side you can see the name Newt, who is a fan favorite character from the Maze Runner franchise. After this, the survivors find a massive door, and after getting scanned, the door will slowly open and you have to once again fight off the infected hordes. This holdout is very long, but the area is very wide open, so it balances out. On expert difficulty runs, this can be very challenging if you don't have any items. Now, before we head over to Chapter 5, there is one more Easter egg that needs to be pointed out. Throughout the Buried Deep campaign, you can find this pixel art on the wall. If you shoot it, a jingle sound effect can be heard. These are hidden throughout the campaign, and I will show all of them quickly. The first pixel can be found in Chapter 1, immediately after leaving the safe room. If you walk into one of the rooms in the hallway, it can be seen right next to the door. Moving on to Chapter 2, if you stop at this pipe and look down, you can find the second hidden pixel. In Chapter 3, if you jump on this box and look on the wall, you can find the third hidden pixel. In Chapter 4, when you make it to the surface, you walk down this alley and you can find the fourth hidden pixel. And finally, when you head over to Chapter 5 and you leave the safe room and turn this corner, the final pixel can be found on the wall. When you shoot it, a door spawns, and when you head inside, you can find credits on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side you can find the following message: "Thank you for playing." You can also find a box in the middle of the room, and when you break it, you find ammo, weapons, and healing supplies. Now, let's talk about Chapter 5 in more detail. When you leave the safe room, you can find this on the wall: "World in Catastrophe, Killzone Experiment Department." And in the nearby hallway, you can also find this: "Remember, Wicked is good." Later on, you can find this piece of wall graffiti on the ground. "To whoever sees this, I have left my truck in a garage crossing through the woods. You just need to fuel it. I hope it's more useful for you than it was for me now." After walking through the parking garage, the survivors leave the Wicked facility, and after a short walk through the woods, the survivors arrive at the finale. The truck mentioned earlier can be found in a garage. All we need to do is fuel it. Before we move on, there is one more Easter egg that needs to be pointed out. If you climb up onto this ledge, you can find this photo on the wall: "Quake is for everyone." Now, let's talk about this finale from a gameplay perspective. Well, it's very difficult. Collecting gas cans is not exactly a fan favorite when it comes to finales, but the area being dark and wide open is a combination that doesn't favor the survivors. The nearby trees also break line of sight, meaning the infected can easily get the drop on you. Also, there is one more thing that needs to be pointed out. If you play this campaign on expert difficulty, you have to collect 20 gas cans. 20. Collecting 20 fucking gas cans with a crew of bots on expert difficulty is basically impossible. So if you want to tackle this finale on the hardest difficulty, bring your friends, because I am not exaggerating when I say this is one of the hardest finales on the workshop. It's honestly not too bad on normal or advanced, but collecting 20 gas cans on expert difficulty is an insane challenge. Nazcuz goes into more detail about this campaign's brutal challenge, so check out his video if you haven't already. After fighting off the infected hordes, the truck gets fueled up and the survivors drive away from the forest, and that concludes the story behind Buried Deep. This is one of the hardest campaigns on the workshop, and I know I said that a few times, but I really mean it this time. Buried Deep is a brutal challenge regardless of the chapter you're playing, but even with its difficulty, this campaign is still really good. The Easter eggs and wall graffiti are also very well implemented, and I had a lot of fun breaking it down. So, if I did miss anything, or if you guys have anything to add, be sure to let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.